there. In today's video, we are talking about how do you hire a grant writer, right? We're going to be covering all the questions, including, can I pay them a percentage of the grant? Spoiler alert, the answer is no, and I'm going to get into why. And of course, well, what do you actually pay them? All right, let's hit it. Okay, so I already spoiler alerted this, right? No, you cannot pay your grant writer from a percent of the grant. Why, you ask? I thought this was done. It was done in the past. It's no longer considered ethical or a common practice, and here's why. Number one, funders don't want to pay retroactively for grant writers. They want to pay for what you're proposing in your project or in your application, right? Like, what are you actually trying to do with the funding? So funders do not want to pay for grant writer fees. They expect you to cover that, right? Sometimes, especially for federal grants, it's just plumb not allowed. It's an ineligible expense, so just not going to happen. It's not allowed. The other reason, of course, is that really it's not fair or professional to the grant writer. They are bringing a very technical skill set to the table to write grants for you, assuming you're finding a really good one, right? And so you need to be paying them for their time because grants are not a guarantee. Most grants are not a 100% win rate. Now, a really good grant writer drastically improves your odds, puts together a super effective strategy, right? Like, they're so worth it, right? The ROI is incredible. Okay, I can pay you $10,000 and I'm going to be able to win a $1 million grant from that. Like, hello, really good ROI. But the deal is, the expectation is you, the organization, are paying for that up front. It is not coming out from the grant after. Okay, number two. Well, how do I find said baller grant writer, right? Where are they? So there's a couple things you can do. The number one tip I have is, if you find out about successful grants in your community or for a similar type organization, that zone, whatever you're trying to get funded, go ask them, who's your grant writer? Because chances are it's probably not in-house. They might be contracting that out. Then you can go find who that person is and get them on, hire them, right? Work with them because they have a proven track record. You're seeing the good work that they've done, right? A pro tip on this as well, if you go look at, when you're looking at foundations and their giving history, they have to file with the IRS a 990 form. This states who they gave grants to what organizations, and in what amounts. So go look at that gold mine of information. You're going to get all the organization names, and then you can reach out to them and say, hey, who did you work with? How did you do your grant writing? And if you're feeling that, you can also ask, may I have a sample copy of your application, right? Like, you can do this. There's nothing stopping you. The tool that we really like using for this, as an aside, is Instrumental. They visually make this IRS data much easier to process. That was an aside. Where else do you find them? So you can go to websites like Upwork.com. There's, I'm forgetting, Grant Writer Teams is another one, but I think it's a pretty old school model, frankly. So that's a route you can go. There are definitely some good grant writers listed on Upwork, but I'll tell you that the best, they're not there. Usually because they don't actually have to advertise themselves to get work, right? They just are constantly asked for repeat work. They grow, they hire people, etc. So there's that strategy. We also actually have a database of grant writers that have graduated from our program, gone on to start consulting businesses, and you can get matched up with them. So I will place that link below. You can go find our grant writers. They're super amazing. They've been well trained, right? That's half the battle because not all grant writers are equal. Actually, that segues well into question number 3, which is, what can you expect? So if you work with a grant writer from our program, this is what you can expect. They will want to provide a funding strategy for you. A funding strategy is a roadmap of the top grants that you should be pursuing over the next 12 to 18 months. It makes a lot of sense to research ahead of time. What are the grants we want to be pursuing 6 months from now, etc. And how do we stack these together like dominoes so by winning this one, we can help knock over the next one and the next one, right? So it's stacking it. So there's a lot of critical thinking and strategy and talking with funders, etc., that can go into organizing what are the grants we should go after. So you're not being haphazard about it. You're not being reactive. You got an email announcement and it's due in 3 weeks or crazier, like a week, and you're trying to do that, right? So that's where we really want you to start, is with a funding strategy. Then you'll know exactly what grants to go after and can then proceed with the contract amendment to then go and implement it and can write the grants, right? Okay, so that's the strategy we like. Not everybody does it that way. That's just the method that we teach in our program. But otherwise, what you can expect is have an interview with them, see how it feels when you meet a grant writer. Is there good energy between you all? Do you feel like they understand your industry? Which is really important, because you want to, they don't have to understand your industry like in and out, they can learn it, but it's important that they have a hunger and a curiosity for that. Do they ask good questions? Were they well prepared to meet with you? Stuff like that. Also, no brainer, ask for writing samples. Doesn't actually have to come from a grant application. Someone's writing, no matter what it is going to give you you'll just see right away if you're vibing on their writing style or not. So that's important. I want you to be on the lookout for, are they using persuasion writing and are they using storytelling? And if they have both of those things, you're probably looking at a good person. Okay, number 4. Great, I found a good person. I've interviewed them, all is well. How much do I pay them? Well, first of all, it is their responsibility to submit to you a contract proposing their fees, right? So they should be presenting that to you. But just to give you a ballpark in terms of what you can expect, it does range. So there's 3 ways you can think about pricing. There's cheap, right? Just trying to get the cheapest work as possible. There's affordable and fair pricing, and there is premium pricing. So if you're trying to hire someone on the super duper cheap, you're going to get a super duper cheap and probably crappy grant writer. It's just the reality, right? What you pay for is what you get. So I encourage you to not focus on this route. If you cannot afford a grant writer, don't try to hire one. Learn that skill yourself. So learn it yourself, pay for a board member to go through a training, right? Invest in your in-house capacity, because that's going to be a whole lot more affordable for you if you can't afford affordable and fair pricing. Affordable and fair pricing means, okay, this is fair for the services they're delivering. So this is typically someone that's charging between $50 and $75 an hour. So for a funding strategy, that roadmap, that would be anywhere from $1,000 to $2,500 for them to figure out what grants you should go after. Grants, as you can imagine, really, really vary in shade and in complexity. And obviously there are some gains obtained when you can go after 5 grants at a time, not at a time, but you're going after 5, so some of that material can get repurposed. But a letter of inquiry, that'd be about $1,200 to potentially a federal grant application, right? Those can be $8,000 to prepare, and that's just for fair and affordable pricing. So that's sort of some of the ballpark numbers that you're looking at. And then premium priced grant writers, those are basically $80 to $200 an hour for their time. And the rates are going to go up, right? So a really complicated federal grant could be $20,000 for them to prepare it. So if you're paying for a premium grant writer, you expect a premium experience. That's what our consulting firm grew into and provided. But you bet I started affordable and fair and still deliver great value to clients. So that's what you're looking for, someone in that affordable, fair range, I'm presuming, unless you're going premium, which is totally awesome as well. So yeah, that's how it will go. We encourage pricing where you agree on value-based pricing, okay, I'm going to pay $10,000 for this application, and we teach bill by percent of work complete monthly. So at least you know what you're budgeting with, because if you go by hourly, well, what's the lid on that? You don't know how much they're going to charge, and that's a lot of uncertainty. So it's better to agree on a fixed fee at the upfront, and then they'll bill as the work is completed throughout the life of the project. Okay, last one. This is kind of a random one, but one of the questions I know that you're going to want to ask is, what's your win rate? And I have to tell you, there's no shame in asking this, but I'll tell you that grant writers kind of hate it. And here's why. First of all, so I'll give you an example. When I first got started, I started doing these grants in Washington that were for street improvement projects through this Transportation Improvement Board in the state of Washington. And I was really crushed when the application was not successful. I poured into it, right? And I brought it to the engineer and I said, I'm so sorry. I worked really hard on this. I'm so crushed it wasn't successful. And he looked at me and he said, no worries. This is how it works. Yeah, kind of just got to get your project in the queue and it rolls through, by year 3, you should get funded so long as it's a solid project. They just don't have enough funding for everyone. And there've been people that have been in line longer. So that made it look like, hey, I have a 0% win rate with this grant program. Well, by year 2 and year 3, guess what? We got them funded. So it just does go to show that sometimes, what's your win rate is not an entirely accurate picture. So I do just want you to be aware of that as you start to have these conversations when you're hiring a grant writer. And hopefully it's a grant writing unicorn. That's what we train. All right, if you have any other questions, be sure to drop those in the comments below. If you like this video, hit subscribe. And what else? Oh, I'll drop in the link on how you can get connected with a grant writer in our program. That's it. See you later.